Hello everyone, welcome to The Storyist. In today's episode, find out the story of an old man who's been in a life and death situation, and how a teenage Black American girl saved his life. In the middle of summer, the Craig family decided to move to Chicago. They've been moving from one place to another because of Nathaniel's work. He's been in military service in Nigeria for almost 5 years. He knew that being in that profession has a big responsibility to the country and people. Also, it requires him to move from one place to another in preserving peace and order. Though he needed to sacrifice a lot of time to his work, we can all say that being in the military pays well. He was able to send his only daughter, Naria, to one of the most prestigious schools in Nigeria. She's a senior high school student under the STEM strand. She thinks that this would expose her to advanced science theories that would build a foundation when she enters college. Naria might not be able to continue her studies in Nigeria because of their recent transfer to Chicago 3 weeks ago. She's still adjusting herself to the place, culture, and people. Chicago has been well known for cultivating performing arts and architecture, and giving its people a better education. Naria was so excited to look for her new school. She's been searching for the best universities for nursing. However, most of them have really expensive tuition fees. She doesn't want to be a burden to her father. She knew that transferring from one country to another might cost a lot, especially now that her father recently bought a new house in Chicago. She's thinking about how she could help her father with her educational expenses. She looked around their subdivision for a wanted sign or as a helper. The subdivision has an Italian design, which surprised her and made her feel that they were in the Renaissance period. She noticed that most of the people were in their 50s to 80s. She didn't see any individuals the same as her age. Through her observation, all the lawns have tall grasses, and most of them also have dirty cars. They might need someone who would help them. Naria discussed with her parents her plan of the services to the neighborhood. His father didn't want the idea of her offering such a service. Nathaniel was very aware of their situation, that as Nigerians, they are more likely to experience discrimination, especially now that they're living in a country where most people are white. Despite that, Naria insisted that she would still do the service. She also reasoned that she needed extra money for her schooling. After their argument, Naria made her father agree with her. The following day, Naria woke up with enjoyment. She's even humming while she's preparing her meal, excited for the new day ahead of her. After having a lovely breakfast, she went on her computer and started searching for flyer designs. Finally, she came up with her design and started printing. She cut the whole paper into 4 pieces. After that, she's ready to go. Naria first walked to the right side of the neighborhood. To a brown door, she started to knock. It took her at least 3 times before an old man, maybe in his late 60s, opened the door. The man seemed annoyed as he opened the door. Naria greeted the man with delight and introduced herself. She mentioned that her family recently moved into the place. She even added that they're from Nigeria, then handed the flyer she made. She mentioned that she's offering a service like lawn maintenance, car cleaning, and even pool cleaning with a positive tone. She also added that she's doing it because she had to save enough money for her studies. She wanted to take the nursing course and follow the steps of her mother. The man in front of Naria was Greg. He's been living alone in a 2-story house. He is also a widow. His wife passed away 3 years ago. Unfortunately, they were not blessed with a child. The neighbor described Greg's life as a miserable one. He doesn't have any friends or family. Greg looked at the paper, and then looked at the girl handing the flyer. He saw a platinum black complexion and how curly her hair was, which made him annoyed. Greg crumpled the paper as if it wasn't there. He seemed disgusted by her looks, and asked Naria to never step into his backyard ever again. Even Naria was experiencing discrimination. She remained calm and still smiled to the old man. She even managed to explain again the services she's offering, and leave Greg standing by the door. Naria didn't mind anything that Greg said. She happily hopped his way out and went from neighbor to neighbor. She didn't even encounter the same experience she had with Greg. It was a long day for her, and she finally managed to book herself with a client. The next morning, Naria wakes up excitedly as usual. She prepared herself the materials she's been using, and added small goodies for her clients. Naria's work started with Raphael's family, 2 blocks away from their place. She would be doing lawn services and car wash. The first thing she did was start preparing materials for the car wash. On her bucket, she put her fabric soap, and using her foam, she rubbed the car gently. Then, after finishing the car, she started the lawn. She used her pruning shear. Luckily, in Raphael's family's goodness, they let her use the electric mower. It took her almost 3 hours to finish her errands. Raphael's family gave her even more than the price she set for her service. She also received a big amount of tips, and even books that she could use for nursing. On her way to the next client, she bumped into Greg, who's currently taking his trash out. Neria rushed to help the man, but instead, the man pushed her. Greg didn't want to be associated with someone who had black skin. Greg even associated Neria with something like a black bug. Then he left Neria on the ground. Neria stood up, disappointed by what happened. She couldn't expect that she would experience that kind of discrimination. Later on, she was able to accomplish all her scheduled services. She was able to get at least $500. Neria was so happy, thinking that she could buy all the books that she might need for nursing. Neria rested his feet on their balcony while eating some cookies and drinking orange juice. Suddenly, she saw Greg sitting in his car. He seemed upset by something to the point that his face turned red. Then, Greg was outraged as he came to his car. He was shouting to the point that his lung might explode any minute. Then suddenly, Greg put his hand to his chest and then fainted. Neria saw everything and immediately ran to Greg. She shook his head a bit and then tapped his face, but she didn't receive any response from the man. Neria checked for a pulse, but it's very slow. She immediately called 911 while waiting, and she gave Greg first aid. After a minute or two, an ambulance finally arrived. The health services asked if someone could accompany Greg, but he left with no one. Neria presented herself as Greg's company. When they arrived, Greg was rushed to the emergency room, and it took a while before the doctor came out. Greg had a mild heart attack. Luckily, Neria was there, and she was able to call for help. The doctor also commended her for giving first aid. Neria even asked for her parents to come, so that they would be able to help her with Greg's needs. Nathaniel and his wife visited the old man almost every day. They even brought fruits and an air humidifier to ease Greg's condition. After 2 days, Greg finally gained consciousness. He immediately saw all the flowers and fruits on the bedside table, wondering who might have brought that. Then he turned his head and saw a teenage girl sleeping on the seat. To his surprise, it was the black girl that he insulted just because of her race. Greg burst into tears. He couldn't expect that this girl helped him. He couldn't even take his eyes away from the girl, as he realized that he was given a second life because of her. Moments after, Neria woke up and saw that Greg was already awake. She couldn't express herself and gave Greg a big hug. Eventually, she burst into tears. She was so happy that Greg's finally fine. Greg was thankful for Neria. He couldn't even think of who would do such a deed in their neighborhood aside from her. He even offered that he would triple pay for the service of Neria and give her all the nursing books he had. It turned out that Greg was a former nurse. From that day forward, they built a good friendship. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more.